these are not members of the Musicians' Union. This is Darth Vader, the villain from the film Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back, who is our guest tonight, or at least the man beneath the mask is Dave Prowse. Later on, he'll be telling us about the seven-stone weakling who became an international weightlifting champion. Seven-stone weakling. We do have, however, members of the real Musicians' Union on the other side of the lawn there, and because they're in dispute with the BBC, they will be trying to disrupt the programme. Fortunately, we're always in such a state of permanent chaos, I never know when we're being disrupted and when we're not.
He's Darth Vader, he's Baron Frankenstein's monster, he's been one of the most fearsome figures in many horror films, and yet he's also the Green Cross Code Man. Coming out from behind his many terrifying masks is one of the nicest men you'd ever wish to meet, David Prowse. When I told my children that I wasn't going to be talking to Douglas Fairbanks tonight, that instead I was going to be talking to you, they were absolutely thrilled. They said, Darth Vader? Actually, one of them said Darth Vader and the other one said the Green Cross Man. Marvelous. Which do you prefer to be known as?
I like both, actually. And it's very interesting because when I became Darth Vader, or at least when the Star Wars film came out, I almost got the sack from the government because they thought that my image as Darth Vader would have a detrimental effect on my image as the Green Cross Code Man. But in fact, the reverse has been the case.
Well, I must say, you do look slightly different in both roles, to say the least. How did you get this amazing part in Star Wars?
Well, I'd had a long history of playing monsters.
Oh, I see.
I was playing Frankensteins, and I started at Casino Royale, then I went to the Horror of Frankenstein, then I went to Vampire Circus, then I finished up with doing a film called Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell. And I think George Lucas had seen these pictures and wanted somebody very big and physical for the part in Star Wars. And when he saw me, I went up to the 20th Century Fox offices in London.
Right.
And he said, well, I've got two parts which I'd like you to consider. And I said, well, what are they? And he said, well, the first one's a character called Chewbacca. And I said, well, what's Chewbacca? And he said, well, it's like a hairy type gorilla that goes through the film on the side of the goodies. And I said, well, I don't fancy that very much, George. And I said, what's the other one? And he said, well, the other one's a character called Darth Vader, who's the big villain of the film. And I said, well, don't say any more, George, I'll take the villain's part. And that's how it all came about.
Ah, that's very interesting. Were you in acting long before that?
I actually came into the business in 1965.
I heard a rumour about when you were doing your first acting part, that you were in a pub, or you were asked to go to a pub in the East End. Would you like to tell me about that?
Yeah, I was... the very first job I did in the business was a play called Don't Let Summer Come.
Yes.
And whilst I was doing the play, I only had the very last part of the play. I was the finale. I played the part of Death, and all I had to do was go in and pick up Kenneth Griffith, carry him off stage, and then the curtain used to come down, and that was the end of the production. You see.
Yeah.
So I used to have between 8 o'clock and 11 o'clock free. And one day my agent contacted me and said, look, can you... do you want a little job? You can earn yourself 20 quid or something like this. I said, all you have to do is go to a pub in the Whitechapel Road. And he said, when you get there, you have to ask for a chap called Ronnie Cray. So I had no idea who Ronnie Cray was. And I went to the pub in the Whitechapel Road, and it was full of enormous, great big fellas. And they were all about my size, you see. And Ronnie Cray came up to me and said, I'd like to introduce you to my brother, and introduced me to Reggie Cray.
And you had no idea?
I had no idea. No, I had no idea who they were. No, and I stayed the evening in the pub and sort of ate and drank to my heart's content. About 10:30, I said, well, I'm very sorry, Mr. Cray, but I've got to go. And he said, well, it's been very nice having you. Thank you very much for coming. And off I went. I went back to the play and did my little bit. And it turned out that they were trying to frighten somebody in the pub.
You've been very busy lately, though, haven't you? Because as a Green Cross man, aren't you bringing out a book on safety for children?
That's right. We have I decided, one of the things I do is I tour all over Great Britain talking to kids about road safety. But it's like a drop in the ocean when I go out to these schools. I do 2 schools per town. I've been to 100 different cities in Great Britain so far.
Wow.
So there's only 200 schools out of literally thousands in the country. So I decided I'd come out with a book on safety for kids. And it was originally intended as a road safety book, child pedestrian road safety. And then I decided to go into cycling proficiency as well. And then I invited a few of my friends in the business and to get involved, and we decided it was going to be a sort of a personality guide to road safety, and I was going to get some of my friends to dress up as policemen and policewomen and things like this, you see. And I then took it to a publisher, and the publisher said, well, why don't we go a bit further and go into safety in the home and safety at school? And I then, as I said, contacted all sorts of people, and we had a tremendous response, and we've now got people like Morecambe and Wise interested. They're in with me. Big Daddy, we're going to get involved. Henry Cooper, John Conte, Cliff Richard,
it
the
sounds
Goodies.
great.
It's going to be marvellous, and it's coming out in the middle of October.
It's a strange combination, though, isn't it? I mean, on one side, the Green Cross Card Man, or Green Code Man,
yeah,
and on the other side, Darth Vader.
Yeah.
I think that we have a clip of the new Star Wars movie here.
Yeah, yeah.
What's it called?
It's called The Empire Strikes Back.
And I'm sure you're absolutely terrific in it.
Thank you.
You know what I wanted to ask you?
Yeah.
What is women's reaction to you? Because, I mean, here you are. How tall are you?
6'6".
And you've always... You were a champion, weren't you? You were a champion
I was
bodybuilder.
British heavyweight weightlifting champion.
So, I mean, is women's reaction, do they come on to you very strong, or do they kind of walk the other way when they see you? Or, I mean, what is their reaction?
No, it gets different reactions, actually. And the funniest reaction of all is the reaction to Darth Vader, because I get an enormous amount of fan correspondence, primarily from America.
Yes.
And, in amongst all this correspondence, you get this really sort of pornographic content of women that write to you who I think have this big fixation about this big black character.
What, all in the black
all
cloak
in the
and
black,
everything?
and the black leather and
Wow.
everything else.